Good morning. This is Niaga AWANI. A quick check on market updates. We're looking at the KLCI at 1557, up 3.1 points or 0.2%. We're looking at 500,000 shares traded with a value of 189 million ringgit. A bit slow this morning, but one share that still constitutes an idea of how people are going to think about the market. It's of course Serba Dinamik. It's trading at 6.5 cents. In fact, just before the break just now, it was as low as 6 cents. Serba Dinamik, of course, is seeking leave from the High Court for resolution of payment obligations. This news came about early this morning. They are taking steps to seek leave from the High Court to allow the company to convene one or more court-convened creditors meeting. Now, of course, they say this is to present one or more scheme of arrangement to seek a constructive resolution to the company and its subsidiaries' payment obligation. So joining us is P. Gunasegaram, independent writer and consultant. Guna, thanks for taking the time to speak with us this morning. Let's take a quick look into the whole trials and tribulations that has befallen Serba. What will be some of your initial thoughts following the resumption of trade for Serba Dinamik for this week?
I think the question on everybody's mind is what exactly is the extent of the problem at Serba Dinamik and how can it be resolved? So they have asked for a court order, presumably under the Companies Act, to delay people from making claims so that they can come up with sort of a rescue plan or a restructuring. But one would assume that this would involve some amount of capital injection, and I think for that to happen, they must have a solid plan for a turnaround.
Yeah, one of the items that came about this morning also is in their statement saying that they will propose a scheme of arrangement that would address 100% of the amounts of creditors of Serba Dinamik, including the petitioners. The idea here is, of course, trust that has been eroded from the company. Investors are now questioning each and every single statement that comes out from the company. Basically, when they say that they would address 100% of the amounts of creditors, for instance, a big question mark onto whether or not they can do so. The trust element here, Guna, maybe you can share with us into the concept of corporate governance.
I mean, as we know, there were serious charges levied against 4 Serba Dinamik officials, which could have resulted up to 3 million in fines and 10 years in jail each. So this involves market manipulation by giving false information. And inexplicably, the AG decided to compound the offence for a fine of 3 million each, and this did not go to trial. So the fact of the matter is the management, whose credibility is now under question, is still there, and that could be a major problem in terms of trust. So how can you trust what Serba Dinamik is saying now? They have sued 2 of the auditors. They have also sued Bursa Malaysia, and so far nothing has come out of them suing these people. So unless there is a change in the management and maybe even the shareholders, there will be a major question of trust as far as the restructuring plan is concerned. So it will be interesting to see how this plays out in future, but trust will be a major issue, yes.
Final question to you, I suppose, when it comes to Serba Dinamik, because I want to move on to corporate governance after this, is of course privatization element of Serba Dinamik. Do you think that's a possibility?
I haven't looked at it in detail, but it will depend on the current businesses that they have. I mean, yes, all of the oil field service providers have been hit very hard. The other one that comes to mind is Apura Energy. By first the fall in the sharp fall in oil prices before, followed by the COVID-19 pandemic now. So this really badly affected them. But the one has to go in to see if they have actually a viable business, whether with oil prices now increasing, whether the margins in the oil field services might recover. But it will be a lengthy process, and it takes a good management to be able to do a turnaround like that now.
Okay, the second half of the conversation I want to focus on is, of course, corporate governance. You were quoted by BFM Radio yesterday saying that corporate governance is going to be scrutinized again and again. In fact, one big news that we saw yesterday, for instance, is when KPMG managing partner says that they were compelled or intimidated. The word that he used in the court was intimidated. Najib Razak intimidated KPMG to sign off on the accounts, which they promptly did. And this, of course, brings about a big question of assurance, yeah, in terms of how things are being done in Malaysia when it comes to auditing. Do you feel that this is a systemic problem in corporate Malaysia? Do you feel that much needs to be done when it comes to revamping how assurance and auditing is done?
I think there is no excuse for any of the big four companies or for any major audit firm to be compelled to sign an audit and approve it if there is anything if there is anything at all which is wrong with the accounts. They have a duty to the shareholders who appoint them, and they have to they are trained actually to go above this and to resist any kind of compulsion to come up with a fair report. So that is their job. You know? So if they sign off on an account which should not have been signed, then the auditors have to bear full responsibility for that as well. So the gatekeepers need to do the job. You know? So the other thing is in terms of regulation. I mean, in the case of Serba Dinamik, there is the SC, but in the case of 1MDB, it's not clear who exactly are the regulators. And in the case of 1MDB,
the answer is no regulator, Guna. Yeah. There's no regulator. Yeah. That's why it's like this. Yeah. My big question here is that because of all the shenanigans that is currently happening in the country, past and present, no one has gone to jail. None of the officers of Serba Dinamik has gone to jail or been asked to go to jail. They were asked to pay the heftiest fine possible that can be found in the statute. 1MDB, nobody's gone to jail. So it seems like, if you know the right people, you can escape going to jail. Do you think this is a fair comment?
Yes, I mean, the problem arises with the AG. You know, under Article 1451 of the Federal Constitution, it is the Prime Minister who basically appoints the AG. So the AG sits in his office at the pleasure of the Prime Minister. So that should not be the case. The AG appointment should be maybe made out of Parliament. And then the other thing is that the Article 1453 gives the AG absolute discretion with respect to prosecution. So this also means that regulatory bodies such as the Securities Commission, Bank Negara Malaysia, Companies Commission, and a number of others, maybe even including MAVCOM, for instance, before they can prosecute, they have to get the consent of the AG first. So the AG can decline to prosecute, and nothing can be done about it. So that article needs to be changed to devolve the power away from the AG to the regulatory authorities, for instance, and let them make a decision on whether the prosecution should take place or not. After all, they know the situation best.